Greetings, Northern Conference.
Amen.
Amen.
Greetings, Northern Conference.
Amen.
Greetings, everyone.
Amen.
Amen.
We are like the Northern
Okay,
Conference.
it is a great pleasure for us to be standing in front of you here as Northern Conference. I am not alone. I am with Northern Conference. Without Northern Conferences, Northern Conference, there cannot be other conference. Without the beginning, there cannot be an end. So without us starting this week, there cannot be an end of the week. That is why we are starting. And when you look at us, the minority, there's a song that says, Uskan Sheva Wanyaza. Yeah, that song can relate to us as the conference. That don't look at our conference and nyaza it. Otherwise, I'm happy to be here. I hope everyone is happy to be here. Amen. Let's pray. Thank you, Lord, for allowing us to be in front of you right now and talk about you in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. I struggled to get a sermon to present this week under the title that says United. And I said, what exactly can I talk about in unity? Then I figured out that there is one thing that can cause separation. It is when we don't forgive each other. There cannot be unity when there is no forgiveness. Let me rather pose a question to you. Have you ever been disappointed in your life? Or rejected by the people that you love? Or have you ever been in a situation where you told yourself that you will never forgive such a person because of what they did to you? And that question on its own causes disunity. And whenever there's no forgiveness, there is no unity. So we can preach the whole week about unity, but if we cannot forgive each other, we cannot be united. Rush with me, Luke chapter 23, verse 34. Jesus kept on saying, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing. Then they divided his clothes among them by throwing dice. If you read this verse in International Standard Version, it says, Jesus kept on saying, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. This was a statement that Jesus kept on repeating. And as he was praying, standing in the cross there, a cross that was made for him, an innocent man who was being crucified by the Jews and the Romans, and he stands there in the cross and he says, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Forgiveness is like money. It is easy to receive money, but it is not easy to give out money. That is forgiveness. It's like money. Everyone wants to receive money, but no one wants to give out money. So we see Jesus here placed on the cross, representing the hate of mankind's sin, the worst that men can do. And yet Jesus, ever the merciful one, shows grace in his pain. Grace which is everything for nothing to those who don't deserve anything. Grace which every man needs, which he cannot earn, but can receive from God. He says, Father, forgive them. Now, the word on its own that says, forgive them, is a word that means aphiemi in Greek. And there are two words that mean forgiveness. The other word, it's charizomai, which means grace. But when Christ says, Father, forgive them, he chooses to use the word that says aphiemi. Now, aphiemi means to remit or to release someone from guilt, or to let someone go from penalty. And charizomai is a word that means grace. It means to give someone favor which he does not deserve. But God uses the word that says afiemi. He releases these people from the guilt which they deserve. Now, God is aware of the Old Testament, that whenever someone was oppressed, the prayer will be, God, remember me in this trial, so that you can avenge my enemies. Now, in the Jewish mind, remembering is not an act of thinking, but when God remembers his people, he acts on behalf of his people. And God says, release these people. Release these people, for they do not know what they are doing. We can illustrate this when we go to Matthew 18, verse 23 to 35. There's a story of a king there, and a debtor who goes to him, and he says, I don't have money to pay you. And the king forgives this man. That was the releasing, that is the expression of the word that is used here. This man owes a king, and he cannot afford to pay the king. And the king releases this man from the contract that he owes him. So when Christ is at the cross, he looks at the people that are crucifying him. He looks at the Roman people, and he looks at the Jews, the people that were a chosen generation, the people that rejected him, the people that said to him, we don't want this man as our king. When they placed a crown on his head, the Roman soldiers wrote on the crown that this is the king of the Jews. But the Jews said, do not write that he is the king of the Jews. Rather write that this man said he is the king of the Jews. And Christ says, Father, forgive such people, for they do not know what they are doing. The reason why he used this word is because of the environment where he was in. Remember previously, people are shouting and they say, release Barnabas. Release Barnabas and crucify Jesus Christ. So it was a word that was familiar to them. Now when he says to his father, Father, release these people, for they do not know what they are doing. What is Christ saying? He is extending grace to his people. That and forgiveness is something that you do even if you are not sure whether the person will repent. You forgive before the person even comes to ask for forgiveness. You forgive even if the person is still tormenting you. Forgiveness is a hard thing. Because when Christ says forgive them, they are still crucifying him at the cross. His forgiveness is not conditional. It does not say, take me away from the cross, then I will forgive you. But he says, forgive them while he is still hanging in the cross. Not only that, when he says forgive them, there is a thief just after he said forgive them that said, if you are the Christ, save yourself from the cross.
Hey.
When he has uttered the words and says, forgive them, I want to say to us, when you forgive someone, it's not about that person, it's about you. What the person does after you have forgiven them, it's none of your business. When you forgive someone, you are freeing yourself from bondage. Because you see, when there is someone who has offended you, that person has got control over you. Because if a person has offended you and they get into this place, your atmosphere changes. And that person walks freely. So whenever you decide not to forgive someone, you are imprisoning yourself. And you are allowing the perpetrator to control your life. So Christ here says, forgive these people. And he is taking himself away. What they do after that, it's up to them. Now bear in mind that forgiveness does not mean saved. Them being forgiven in the cross was not a guarantee that they will be eternally saved. Because we see this after the cross, 40 years after the cross, the same people that crucified Christ, the same Jews we find them in the destruction of Jerusalem. And they are destroyed with Jerusalem. The people that were given grace are the same people that are destroyed in the destruction of Jerusalem. Forgiveness is not about you. You have been hurt, you have been disappointed, but free yourself from that bondage. You know, when you forgive someone, before they even ask for forgiveness, even that person wonders. They ask themselves, why is this person forgiving? You know, at times we need to forgive people that do not even deserve our forgiveness. We need to forgive people that continually abuse us. We need to forgive such people. And forgiveness is a hard thing, but it is something that is possible. I know we are faced with a lot of things when it comes to ladies that are being raped, that are being killed. And it's a hard thing to think about forgiving such a person. But Christ says, Father, forgive these people, for they do not know what they are doing. Forgive such a person. It is only because of disunity that we cannot forgive. If we do not forgive, love ceases to exist. Unity becomes a word. When we cease to forgive, we cease to love. It is then that Friedrich Nietzsche comes and says with his theory that he says, we have killed God. And I wonder, this man says we have killed God. What does he mean? How do you kill God? He says, we have killed God because of the way we live. We have killed God because we cannot forgive, but we profess to serve a forgiving God. We have killed God because we profess to love, and yet we do not love. He says when he walks into the pews of the church, he sees the church that has buried God because of the things that are happening in the church. We have killed God because of the way we live. But God is not dead, but because of the way we live. You see, when a person is married and they live as if they are not married, they have killed their marriage. It's not that the marriage is not there, but it is because of the way this person is living. That a person who is outside marriage looks at this and he says, this person has killed his marriage. That is what this man says here. When he looks at Christians, he says they have killed their own God. Because they say they serve a forgiving God, but they cannot forgive. They pray, but they cannot love. It is easy to connect upstairs, but it is not easy to connect this way. For they do not know what they are doing. Now there's a farmer that once owned a donkey. One day as this man was farming, it is recorded that his donkey fell into a pit. It was an old donkey. When it fell into a pit, this man wondered, how is he going to take off this donkey from the pit? Then he decided on his own. He said, this donkey is too old anyway. Let me just help him to die. Let me just bury this donkey. It's too old anyway. He went and he got a shovel. When he came back, he thought for a while, should I bury this donkey? But anyway, it's an old donkey. Let me bury it. And the man continued to pour soil in this pit. The more he threw soil into the pit, the more the donkey cried. And it cried. If the donkey was able to talk, I'm sure it was saying, I will never forgive my master. It was crying. But it is recorded that when the more this man went on pouring soil into this pit, the donkey kept quiet. The more he went on, the donkey kept quiet. After a while, this man celebrates and he thinks he is done burying this donkey. And he looks on the side, thinking that he is done burying this donkey. Lo and behold, when he looks, he sees this donkey coming out of the pit. And then he wonders, how did this donkey come out of this pit? The donkey decided when it was in there that the only option for me to come out of this pit is to forgive my master. Whenever he is pouring soil, let me shake it off. Whenever the donkey shakes off the soil becomes something that made the donkey to come out. It was the soil that helped the donkey to come out. So when the master was pouring soil inside, the donkey was shaking it off, and the soil became a ladder for this donkey to come out. What am I saying? I am saying at times you'll be faced with people that will come to you, intentionally hate you. There are people that will come to you and provoke you intentionally. There are people that will try to destroy you on purpose. But today I want to say, just be like this donkey, for they do not know what they are doing. The more they try to destroy you, is the more they are raising you up. You see, when someone tries to put you down, just take it as a tennis ball. The more they put you down, is the more you go up. The more someone puts you down, is the more you rise up. Forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Forgiving is freeing yourself. And the last part of the verse says, and they cast lots, dividing up his garments among themselves. The same people that Christ is praying for here. And he is still pleading for them. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. And they now play, they cast lots, they divide his garments. Now, there were four Roman soldiers that were guarding the cross of Christ. And when they divided the clothes of Christ, there was one, a tunic, which was only one, and there were four. Now they decided, let's play lots so that whoever will get this is the person who has won. And this tunic was a priestly garment which was worn in the Old Testament. It was a garment that you cannot tear apart. If you tear it apart, it loses its value. Now imagine these people playing. They are playing for the clothes. They are close to the cross and yet far from Christ. You see, when we fail to forgive, it shows that we are not different from these Roman soldiers. We are close to the cross and yet far from Christ. You see, being close to the cross is a dangerous move. Because the person who would have worn this tunic might have went back home celebrating that he got a priestly garment. But the problem is that he left the priest behind. He is wearing a priestly garment going to his home. His wardrobe is going to expand with a priestly garment. But he left the priest behind. I want to say to us today, let's refuse to be like this Roman soldier and leave these places with the priestly garment and leave the priest behind. Refuse to be that. Forgiving is being forgiven. Christ says, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Someone might have hurt you, they did not know what they were doing. Someone might have betrayed you, they did not know what they are doing. Now, forgiveness is not conditional. And we should not confuse forgiveness and justice. You see, once we start saying we will forgive people who owe us land when they've given us the land, we've missed the concept of forgiveness. Because forgiveness happens before you even get that which you want. You forgive that person. Before you even receive that land that you want, you forgive that person. But once you say you will forgive when you have received, you have missed the concept of forgiveness. Christ says, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Some people only realize their mistakes when you have forgiven them. Forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. God's mercies are at work, even in the midst of his enemies. when we cease to forgive, or when we stop forgiving, we must stop praying as well. Once you stop forgiving, stop praying as well. Because the prayer says, forgive us as we forgive those. If we can't forgive those, let's stop praying. As we continue in this week of prayer, voice of conference, as we continue in this united, let's remember that we can only be united when we recognize the concept of forgiveness. Then we can be one. When we are one, we can conquer. But when we are divided, we fall. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for the word that has been shared in Jesus' mighty name. I pray. Amen.